All right. Today we are going to learn how to find Illustrator, Illustrator, open up a document, and then a couple tools and things that you're going to need like right off the bat. So I'm not going to go over everything in Illustrator, or else you would be super bored. So the first thing is you're going to go to your search bar down here, and I usually just type in ILL and it'll come up. You have to really make sure that you're getting one that says app underneath. Sometimes it'll come up and it'll be like search the web and you'll have Illustrator here. Don't do that. That's going to take you to a website that is not the app. So please don't do that. So we're going to click on Illustrator. I'm going to tell you right now, the way mine opens up is going to be different than yours. So yours is going to open up and it's going to ask you to sign in. So it'll do this thing and it's going to ask you to sign in. You are going to sign in using your Google credentials. So jenna.mcknight@bps101.net. And then I'm going to do my password, same password I sign in for my Chromebook. And then I'm going to click login. It may ask you to log in through the web. You're going to do that. And then it'll kick you out of Illustrator. It just sort of has to do like a reset. For it to say like, hey, Jenna wants to get into Illustrator. So it'll kick you out, go back down to your search bar, type in ILL again, and then you'll be able to open it up. So that's a couple of steps that you'll do. You will only do this the first time you open it up on a new computer. So if we ever switch seats, you'll have to do that again on the other computer, but it really only happens the first time. That's why it doesn't happen to me, because I've already logged in on this computer and I've already done all the things. So do that, log in, let it kick you out, get back into it. All right, so let's say you're there. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to say new file. You might have a little button on the bottom, but we're going to do new file. And I always make sure I go to print, because these mobile and web and film and all of these different things have different ratios and different color like packages that come with it. If you go to print, if you ever were to use this to print off of anything, then you'll have the correct everything you need. So I just always like second nature to me to go to print and then letter. If you ever wanted to change it, like later on, we're going to do a poster project. If you want to do legal, which means that it's taller, it's like a taller paper size, like a poster size, then please do that. But for most of our stuff, we're just going to do letter. And I'm just going to say, okay, so it's vertical. If I were doing something horizontal, I could switch it if I needed to, but I'm going to keep it vertical. And then when we are working with Illustrator or Photoshop, it'll measure in points instead of Photoshop does pixels, excuse me. Illustrator does points because of its vector base. But if you ever were like, I want a paper size that's 12 inches by 18 inches or whatever, you can type in inches or even go here and it'll give you the inches. So see how it converts it over to inches for you. So that's just a little thing. All right, so we're going to click create. There we go. So it might take a second. Excuse me. So right now, you probably do not have this bar up here. Okay. You should have all of these tools over here, and you will probably have some of these palettes, not all of them. And I say some because some of these things just aren't on there because you may not need them. So like this is your text palette right here. You probably don't have that. It just doesn't pop up right away. You might have a lot of things over here as well. All of these things like links, libraries, document info, variables, appearance, all these things is typically things that you don't need to even worry about in our class. One thing you will worry about are layers. So layers are going to be, so I'm going to like shrink this a little bit so that my layers is bigger. Layers are going to be really important. They're really beneficial to you in like deleting or rearranging or things like that. So layers should be something that you really want to get used to. Anyway, so we're going to go over a couple things right now. I don't want to go over everything because that would take a really long time. Like if I went over every single palette or every single tool, that would take forever and you'd be bored. So let's get through this a little bit. This bar right here is super, super beneficial, and it doesn't always pop up when you first open up Illustrator. So in order to get this bar here, you're going to go to Window. So you're going to click on Window. You are going to go to workspace. You probably have essentials checked right now. You want to go to automation and have that checked. Once you click automation, all of this will pop up. And it's just really, it's more convenient, I would say, to change your colors up here or your stroke or the shape of your brush, like those kinds of things. It's really more convenient than to have to go find it all the way over here. Okay, a couple of my favorite tools. Again, we're not going to go through all of these. You can experiment a little bit later with all those types of things. Selection tool. This is where you can click, like the little video is showing you right now, click and drag and make things bigger or smaller. It's like a really, like you use it every day. Direct selection tool is where you can take points of things and you can change the shape or just of one spot, right? The selection tool is like, hey, I want this circle bigger. It's going to make the whole circle bigger. The direct selection tool will say, I want this point on the circle to be bigger. I can change it. And then it shows you these little handle, this little handle guy here. It also can change the curvature. This is one of my most favorite tools. Pen tool is something we will use later on, but it's right here. We typically don't use the curvature pen tool because it can't do a lot of stuff we need it to do. Shape tool. So any of these tools that have the little triangle next to them means that there's tools hiding underneath. So if I were to click on it, I don't have to click and hold, just click on it. Then I have all of these other tools or shapes that I have. So we have rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, which actually can be like a triangle as well, and then line. You'll want to know the shape tool. Paintbrush, I will say I typically do not use the paintbrush. I use it for certain things, details. I do not use it to color things in. It doesn't look as clean as it should. Besides the fact you can use shapes or the pen tool to make whatever you want and have a closed shape and make it look a lot more cleaner. Artists, like who are in the graphic design area, don't use the paintbrush much. We use it for more detail work or stylized, like what they have this little video right here. This is a stylized brush. So don't rely on this, please. Please, please, please. This is the eraser tool. I would highly suggest you do not use it. So the eraser tool is going to mess with your vectors and it's going to, like the egg, it can change the shape, but it does not erase. What it does is it just takes the outside of your vectors and then changes the shape to wherever you're erasing. It doesn't necessarily take it away. So if you were to erase like the yolk on the inside of the egg, it's not going to take it away. It's just going to change the outside shapes. So you can mess around with the eraser tool, but it's not necessarily the best tool. Underneath it is the scissors tool. You will use this in your first project. So if you don't see the scissors, just click the eraser and it'll be right there. Eyedropper is really beneficial to like selecting colors. This is gradient, although you probably use it in a different, oh no, it's gonna shut down on me. Okay, hold on. All right, so that was a bummer. It totally shut down on me, but we are back. So eyedropper is just something that you'll use. Magnifying glass, zooming in and out. And last but not least, we have color over here. So this is where you can choose the colors of whatever you're working on. This square that's in the front that doesn't have a hole in it, like this back one, is your fill. So this will fill whatever shape you want. It'll fill in that shape with that color. This right here, which you can click on and it brings it to the forefront so you can change the color there. This is your stroke. So this is like the outline around whatever you have. So your stroke is your outline or just your line. Like let's say you're using a pen tool or the line segment tool, you can change that. If I double click here, I double clicked on this white square, you can see colors pop up. This is a really, really great because I can come here and choose whatever color I want. It's really awesome because the variety and of colors that I'm able to choose from is huge as opposed to just choosing from like a certain palette. So I can double click and get a color there. I also will have color palette on this side. So I can click here and use my colors. I can say, I want green. And then from here, I can maybe mess around with it a little bit to get like a color that I want. You can do that with stroke too. Just click here and it'll show up on what you want. This little slash mark means that you don't want a color there. So if I did not want an outline or a stroke, I could say, I don't want it. Or vice versa. If I'm like, oh, no, I want my outline to be this green and my fill to be nothing, I can click this little guy here and it'll switch it. So now my fill is nothing and my outline is this green color. So these guys over here are called your palettes. These are your tools. You use your tools. It's like, so for instance, like if I want a paintbrush, I'm going to say, I want a paintbrush. But what kind of paintbrush do I want? Do I want a big one, a small one, a fan brush? That's where you pick it from here. So you're just saying to the computer, I want a brush, but over here is where you get to pick it. So you get to pick how big you want it, the angle of it, those kinds of things. Decorative, right? If you want more decorative pieces, this little 3 lines right here, you click on it, open brush library, and all of these, if you go in here, they have all of these different things for all of them. So you can mess around with that. All right, I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to just use this shape tool. I'm going to use a rectangle. I just want to show you what we can do with it. So right now, if I click out of it and I don't have it selected because then it's easier to see, you can see that it does have a green outline to it, but it's not very thick, right? It's sort of hard to see right at this point. If I wanted it thicker, I can change how my stroke looks, how the weight of my stroke. So I can come here and say, okay, I want it to be a 16-point stroke, and then here it is. Let's say I'm also like, I think I want color. I can come up here and change the color too, but remember I told you these are just your swatches, regular old swatches that you can pick color. But if you were to come over here, you could say, go to my yellow. Oh, I want it more orange or whatever I want. Over here is not going to give you that. Double clicking here will give you that. Your palette will give you that. So I have my shape here. With my selection tool, I can then make it bigger or smaller or whatever I want to do. I can make the corners round. See this little guy right here? I can say, oh, I want a rounded edges or whatever I want to do. So the selection tool changes the whole entire thing no matter what, all the time. Now, your direct selection tool, one of my favorites, is something where it can change part of it. So if I go to this corner here and I click, see how it pops up? If I click on it, you will notice that this corner here is blue, but this is white. That means that this is selected. So I can click on this and I can change the shape of what I want. I can even come here on the inside. Remember that little circle on the last one? If I click here, I'm changing just that point. So I can have it be rounded if I would like to, instead of being flat. So again, if I come here, I can round just this, sort of make like an eyeball shape, right? So it sort of just depends on what I'm doing. But I have to make sure I click on it and it changes color in order to just change that point. So click on this corner here so that it's blue and my other corners are white, as you can see. And then I can change just this point. All right, maybe I'm making like a slice of a lemon. I don't know. But the direct selection tool is like one of my most favorite tools. And then color tool. I want to show you the star tool. So the star tool doesn't have to be a star. If you click and drag, yes, it'll be a star. All right. But if I just click, it's going to ask me how many points do I want? So this is a 5-pointed star. If I wanted a 3-pointed star, it's going to give me a triangle. If I wanted a 12-pointed star, it's going to give me a really cool thing. Okay, a really cool star. So this is really nice. You can use that. You can also use it for your rectangle or your ellipse tool or whatever. So instead of like clicking and dragging, I can just click and I'm going to say, I want, I don't know, a 3-inch by 3-inch, and see, it converts it to points. Like I said, a 3-inch by 3-inch circle. So there we go. Now on my page, I have a 3-inch by 3-inch circle. You can change with opacity. So that's the see-through. So I can come here and like make it see-through, depending on what I want to do. I want to show you one more thing and then we'll be done. I want to add a layer. So let's say I wanted something in the background. I wanted this be filled in with a purple in the background. instead of like trying to take my paintbrush tool and color all around these things or whatever, I'm going to make a new layer. So I go down to this little plus sign, and here's my new layer. I am going to take a rectangle tool. Let's change it to purple so we can see. And I'm actually going to change it to no stroke. I don't want any stroke. And I am going to make it purple. All right. So I'm covering the whole entire page. Right now, it's covering up everything I just did, all that hard work. Well, what I can do is come over to the layer palette, click on layer 2 and drag it underneath. And now I've got this background layer that took me 2 seconds to make, and it's on its own layer too. I can lock it, so now I can't grab it. I can't grab the background, which is really beneficial when you have a lot of stuff, because all of a sudden you grab it and you move it and you're like, oh, I didn't want to do that. I can also turn it off. So this eyeball can turn it on and off where I can see things. So if I have this layer and I'm like, ooh, I just want to do something in the background without all of this stuff in my way, turn that off, unlock it, and I can, I don't know, put pink. Maybe I want, and I always do this. When you're using the paintbrush tool, you have to make sure it's on stroke. Paintbrush doesn't fill in. So I'm just going to reverse it right down here. Let's say I just want a bunch of lines in my background, like a pattern. I can turn that back on. And so now I've got this pattern in the background that I didn't have to like mess around with all this other stuff for. So those are that's like surface level of Illustrator, but it's giving you the basics where most of your tools are. Last thing, if you're missing tools, like you're like, hey, Mrs. McNatt, I don't have that color palette. I don't have the brush palette. Window and find it. So if you're like, oh, I need color, click here and it'll show up for you. All right. Window, brushes, click here. It'll show up for you. This is a really nice tool to have. So we've gone over the basics, to be honest with you. This is really basic of it, but that's what we've got. Now your job is to create and have fun.